This is the real reason why the left is
This is it.
Tesla and Doge.
You're
It's
right.
not because, they're trying to make government more efficient. It's that they're exposing the racket.
That's it.
That there is institutional rot in all these left-wing NGOs and nonprofits who do studies where, like, the Biden administration can appropriate billions, tens of billions of dollars to build out electric charging stations, and they build 8.
We will unleash the power of American innovation. We will soon be on the verge of finding the cures to cancer, Alzheimer's disease, and many other diseases.
The cure for cancer is closer than ever. But the Biden pill penalty is forcing researchers to abandon breakthroughs that could save millions of lives. Only President Trump can fix it. He'll ignite a golden age of innovation to defeat cancer once and for all. Tell Congress end the Biden pill penalty.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please.
Just a catching strays over here.
You're in for a hell of a show. Keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs.
It's time for our main event.
Good Tuesday to all of you. Welcome back to the Ruthless Variety Program. I'm Josh Holmes, along with Comfortably Smug, Michael Duncan, and John Ashbrook. Left to right across your radio dial. As always, we're going to be talking about a bunch of things here today, including the real reason, from our perspective, that the left is attacking Tesla, Doge, a lot of developments over this. I'm sure you've seen a lot on the news. But we're going to be putting a fine point on this for all of you to know exactly why all of this is happening.
I mean, that's the thing. So we started discussing this topic, and I think we really came up with some insightful stuff. I'm really proud of what this episode's going to have, because it's not the standard discussion that you're seeing online and on cable news of being like, oh boy, this is just, some paid left-wing activists going crazy. But there's more to it, and we really have a lot of good info on that.
A lot of good info. We're also going to be talking a little bit about special elections happening today.
That's right.
Great state of Florida. Also a big one that we've discussed on the program in Wisconsin, and that Supreme Court race. All of that stuff, we're going to provide you with some updated numbers and some context and predictions potentially about where all of that goes. Very, very important stuff in terms of how governing goes going forward. And then we've got literally the greatest show in the digital universe, Hack Madness.
Yeah.
And an update on all that, Smug.
Huge. I mean, thank you all so much for your votes so far. It's been exciting, again, to go vote for this. This is picking the biggest hack in media, biggest left-wing hack in media. And you go to my profile on X, @ComfortablySmug, to vote. The votes have been pouring in, and there's lots of surprises we're going to be covering.
I also reran the numbers in the prediction rankings.
Oh, yeah?
Both in the public bracket of all the people who submitted a prediction. Also, thank you to everyone who did. We got like over 1,100 brackets submitted in this
Yes.
thing.
Wow. Great.
And then us, the four of us. So we can
Let
go
me
through
guess
that
who's
too.
winning it. Do I have a
I'm not going to spoil it.
Oh, no, I'm sure you don't. Well, you want to hold suspense on that one, don't
Yeah.
you, old man?
Yeah, it's a tease.
Yeah. Well, breaking news. The old man's probably winning it because he wants to talk about it. So we're going to do that, and we've got some variety. This one's a disgusting mess on variety, so you're going to want to tune into that. Before we get into the meats of all of this, fellas, I've had a disturbing trend in my personal life on the weekends. We have a lot of fun here during the week, and then you go on the weekend, kids, sports, all kinds of different stuff. We're running around like a crazy person. But there's a new disturbing trend where my wife has planned things that I have to go to that require a costume.
Oh, wow. That's a bit much.
Yeah, it was several weeks ago. I had to go, if there was a costume party where I had to dress. And, I don't know about this stuff until, 2 hours beforehand. And I'm like, Jesus, I got it. And she's like, oh, well, here's your costume. So I wish I could tell you I'm running a real tough household where I'm just, this is the guy. Dad needs rest this week. No, that's not at all the way it works. The way it works is
You
I
just
show
get
up.
owned.
I take kids to things, and then they're like, no, but dress up you know what, and then make fun of yourself. So I had this a couple weeks ago. This weekend, it's a Western themed auction thing at one of my kids' schools. There could be worse, right? But you dressing up as a cowboy in Northern Virginia, there's a certain connotation that comes. You're not in Texas. You're not in Wyoming. You're not even in South Dakota. you got a cowboy hat and a big belt-buckle cowboy boots in Northern Virginia, people could get the wrong idea about what's going on. Anyway, I show up, I have a nice dinner with some people. We're on our way to the auction. My wife hits a curb in the car and blows the tire.
Oh, my God.
So I find myself in Roslyn, which is the closest possible metro thing to, it's literally sharing a bridge with Washington, D.C., laying along the side of the road where I sent my wife along with friends to go to the auction. And this gentleman, who's just a terrific guy, decided to stay along and help me out with all this. But we're changing a tire and like laying on the side of the road in full cowboy uniform.
Looking like a lot lizard.
I mean, absolute humiliation. I can't even imagine what people were thinking when they were driving past me. But this is my lot in life on the weekends.
Well, I got to tell you, it says something about you that you changed it yourself. You didn't call AAA. You didn't call a dealership. You got out there, as humiliating as it might be in costume, and you broke those nuts.
Yeah. Well, that's what everybody else was thinking I was doing alongside of the road.
And then you jacked it up.
Oh, Jesus, man.
And then you changed the tire.
Did a couple of cars slow down and roll down their window, see if you needed a ride?
May have been proposition. May have been. But, I mean, this is what I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't sound fun at all.
It's a humiliation. I don't know. I'm sure all of you can relate to this at some level. You don't have control of your weekends at a certain point in your life.
Testament to personal responsibility.
There you go. It is. I love my kids and my wife very much, but it has its limits. Anyway, all right, let's look into this big story. You guys have all seen all of these headlines. If you're on social media at all, it's all over the place. But what's happening with Tesla as a result of Elon Musk running Doge is unbelievable. And it's starting to get a little scary, right? It used to be sort of your one-off attack somebody driving something. I mean, who doesn't get attacked for something in America these days? But it's the repetition and the pattern and going after the dealerships and all of these things. I mean, they're skyrocketing. Mm-hmm. You know, and you look at, there was arrests that were made by DOJ in Vegas. All kinds of different stuff that's happening here. But let's start with a setup clip, if you don't mind. Clip 1, please.
This is video from the victim's Tesla camera. It shows a green car pulling up to a Tesla on busy Route 66, then swerving in front to box the Tesla in. The driver then walks over to the 61-year-old woman in the Tesla and reportedly starts hitting her while she's sitting behind the wheel. At one point, the woman says she bit the man's hand. Moments later, the passenger of the green car appears to walk over and pull the attacker away. They finally get back in their car and drive off.
Okay. All right. So this is in Arizona, where a Flagstaff woman was targeted. This is according to azfamily.com. The violence against Tesla's building in cities across the country. Vehicles set on fire in Las Vegas. Graffiti on cars in Colorado. A man caught on camera keying in Dallas. And then, you know, what you just saw in Arizona. It's repetitive. It's a pattern. And the intent is to try to scare. Like, let me jump to like a little bit of a... I don't want to ruin it for you, but you're wondering why it is that people are doing all that. Brain damage. Brain damage.
That's exactly right. And that's what the left does to people. They pretend like they care about Elon Musk and this is going to hurt Elon Musk. But who it actually hurts is that lady sitting in her car trying to get from A to B, and a lunatic comes over out of nowhere and starts ruining her day. You know, she's the one who suffers. The people who are keying these cars that have to go and take them into a body shop and pay $1,000 to have their car fixed, they're the ones who suffer. Elon Musk isn't the one. And when the left targets people, when communists target people, regular Americans suffer.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, there's no question about it. She's not alone. Can we play clip 2, please, Spaghetts?
Lee was on the way to a doctor's appointment in Linwood Wednesday morning when she says all of a sudden a driver behind her just laid on the horn, as they came up to a red light. Things spiraled out of control when a white SUV followed her and cut her off, stopping in the middle of the road.
Gets out and walks straight up to my door window.
Mask.
So
He's
I
wearing a
cracked my
mask.
window and I said, what is the problem? And he goes, you need to sell your car. This is a Nazi car. You're driving it. You need to sell your car.
Lee says she's been driving a Tesla for the last 2 years.
Okay. All right.
This is a Nazi
I mean,
car.
not for nothing, but the vast majority of Tesla owners are not hardcore Republicans. We're talking about an electric car here. The vast majority of the center of this country doesn't want anything part of an electric car.
Right.
And it is over-indexed off the left from the very beginning. Like, what they're doing here is basically attacking, like, center-left humans who probably have absolutely no idea what it is, a political statement these lunatics are making.
But I mean, I think that's the thing, is this isn't necessarily like a partisan thing. Like, they're not like, I'm trying to attack Republicans or conservatives. This is yet again something that the left has been doing for the better part of almost 2 decades at this point.
With Donald Trump back in office, one of his biggest adversaries, top Democrat Dick Durbin of Chicago, is leading the charge to derail President Trump's agenda at every turn. And now Senator Durbin has a new scheme, a government takeover of your credit card. Today, Americans have thousands of choices in credit cards, all with equal strong security. But Senator Durbin's plan will result in less competition and less security. That means more risk for your credit and your identity. Tell Republican senators, stop Dick Durbin's government takeover of your credit card before it's too late. Learn more at www.guardyourcard.com.
Even if you're on the left, you're not left enough unless you toe the line 100%. Because it's like 10 years ago, if you tried asking, your standard progressive, should you have a gender surgery on a kid? They'd be like, no, of course not.
Right.
You ask them that today and they say no, it's like you're going to a gulag, you're out of the party. So they want, like, this anti-Tesla thing is like 100%. It's like a compliance test of you have to be with the party, comrade, 100%.
Smug, you're absolutely right, because you always say it's not about principle, it's about power.
Bingo.
Look, what it is, it's not, the rules don't actually matter to these people. It's the enforcement of the rules. It's keeping everybody in that same groupthink about what we're supposed to believe. That's more important than actually believing in anything.
Yeah.
And so what's funny is we're talking about, who is the customer base for Tesla generally, right? And it's not just random people who, are in these news clips who are horrified, scared of these interactions they've had with other people. It also is the senior associate editor at The Atlantic.
Oh!
I have a story here from Newsbusters.
Love
Oh,
that.
this should be good.
This is fantastic.
They did good work.
You're going to love this. So this Atlantic editor, Sahil Desai, was driving around Washington, D.C. In their Cybertruck.
Oh,
They have a Tesla Cybertruck.
this is the Atlantic guy.
This is the Atlantic guy.
What a
He
statement.
works for the Atlantic, so he's left wing.
Talk about, like, immediate regret on that purchase, by the way.
The Atlantic must pay an awful lot of money.
He put up an article on Saturday called "My Day Inside America's Most Hated Car." This is fantastic content. And I'll just read some excerpts here. On the first Saturday of spring, surrounded by row houses and magnolia trees, I came to a horrifying realization. My mom was right. I had been flipped off at least 17 times.
What the?
Called motherfucker in both English and Spanish and a fucking dork. A woman in a blue sweater stared at me, sighed, and said, "You should be ashamed of yourself." As I idled with the windows down on the street in the Mount Pleasant neighborhood, a woman glared at me from her front porch. "Fuck you and this truck and Elon. You drive a Nazi truck." She slammed her front door and then opened it again. "I hope someone blows your shit up."
Oh, my God. No, I mean, this is what's going
These
on.
people have lost their minds.
Derangement.
Yeah.
Derangement.
Yeah.
Which, we're going to get to after the break. I got a couple more clips for you, but we're going to get to why this is all happening and put a fine point on it that will, you'll lose your mind when you find this out.
That story, up until the lady who was like, you drive a Nazi truck, when it's just people being like, you should be ashamed of yourself and flipping him off. I think he might have been just wearing a hat that says, I work at the Atlantic.
Yeah.
Because I hope that's what their days are like. But like,
It would have been so conflicted.
The fact that for driving a Tesla, it's insanity.
total insanity. So you remember the firebombing at the Tesla dealership? We got an update on that one in clip 3 here, Nikki. So this is the several vehicles that were set on fire. They burn and explode and all of that.
And bullets were fired.
Yeah, this is the one in
rounds at them.
The one in Vegas. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so arrests are made on that, and we've got a update from Pam Bondi on Fox News in clip 4, please.
What's happening with this Las Vegas Tesla criminal who he was arrested and now federal charges have been filed against him? This was something that was needed given everything we're seeing happening to those dealerships and those cars
Look
across
at this
the country.
guy.
That was remarkable police work, working with the state police,
pork
our
pie
FBI.
hat.
They have been going
Looks like an Asian
nonstop
ZZ
on
Top.
this case. This guy is in custody. Laura, he is facing 5-year minimum mandatory to 20 years in prison. And this was great police work. This guy thought he got away with it. So these people better look out. They better cut it out, because we are coming after you. And at my direction, there will be no negotiating on these people.
No plea
We are
deals.
seeking 20 years in prison.
Yeah.
They
Hell
are
yeah.
setting off bombs, the huge fires. Look what you're seeing, huge, massive fires in residential neighborhoods.
Someone's gonna
at
get killed.
charging stations. Someone is going to get killed. A citizen is going to get killed. And these people, we are not doing any plea negotiations on them.
Yeah.
They better cut it out.
Yeah, let's go. That's it.
So why is that important? It's important, obviously, that we enforce the law and everything else. It also stands in stark contrast to the experience that this American society had during the George Floyd riots, during COVID, everything else, when everything was just, whether it was a federal government or local, which has really been the problem, state and local, through communities throughout this country, you'd have random acts of violence, burning down police stations, for crying out loud, without any sort of prosecution whatsoever. And the message to the public writ large was, there's no real law and order here, and if you got an opinion, it's because you're probably repressed and the society has failed you, and so go commit whatever crime you want.
Fiery, but mostly peaceful.
Fiery, but as CNN said aptly at the time. But what it did is prolong the period of time that we saw all of this incredible random acts of political violence. They're shorting this timeline here by having a really aggressive prosecution at the federal level. I'm heartened to see it.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, when Pam Bondi says that there will be no plea negotiations, because I think, especially during the Biden years, Americans got demoralized because you just accept that, hey, there's cities in this country where you go into a drugstore and every single thing you'd want to buy is behind a piece of glass, because prosecutors in this city have made crime legal, and you're going to walk outside and people are going to be shooting drugs and selling drugs, and you just have to accept that because the prosecutors in this city have decided that crime is legal, and you just became used to that, So when you set this new standard of there's no plea agreement here, we're shooting for 20 years, because what that says, it's a very simple thing, it's worked throughout time, is when you put criminals away, it discourages crime.
Well, and the reason why it's really important, I think, is given the context of the rhetoric that the Democrats are employing on Elon Musk and Doge. Because if a reporter asks a Democrat right now, will you condemn this violence? Of course, what they say, this is the standard thing. They had their comms director, type up, which was of course, I abhor violence, and we should not have violence in our political discourse in America. But a lot of people are very upset that Elon Musk is killing kids with cancer and firing nuclear safety officers. You know what I mean?
The transition is something like that at the same time.
Yeah, do it.
I
Bingo,
deeply understand the frustrations of people throughout the country who feel as though Elon Musk is ruining access to children's education and cancer research.
Because they don't want to actually talk about what Doge is really doing. And that is super important.
That's the heart of it.
It's existential.
Yes.
Which is what we're going to get to at the back half of all of this when we come back. The existential piece to the left and why it is that they are totally involved in trying to brainwash all of these people that are doing what you're seeing and making it seem as though there's something here that's not, because they don't want you to talk about
this
what
is so critical, because you don't hear it anywhere else, and this is the heart of all of it.
We're going to get to all of that and some hack madness and some variety right after this.
Hardworking Americans know when it's time to roll up our sleeves and get the job done. Now is the time to unleash our nation's energy, to create jobs, secure our future, and make life better, more affordable, and full of opportunity for all Americans. That's the power of America's oil and natural gas. Learn more at lightsonenergy.org. Paid for by the American Petroleum Institute.
Okay, so you know the violence, you've seen the violence. The left would have you believe that this is all sort of an organic response to what they see is great offense that's happening here. It's not organic at all, in large part. It's probably funded and organized by these radical 501c4s that we've seen operate with
Hamas protests,
Yeah.
the BLM protests. I mean, this is a tried and true tactic of the left.
All part of the same.
Yeah.
And what you've seen in terms of how they've characterized Doge, and look, this is a charitable explanation, to be honest with you, and we're involved in this, but up for the first couple of months, it's like, oh, it's run by a bunch of 19-year-olds. They're like statisticians, no personal ability to relate to humans, that they just have a mission and they launch into all of these departments and basically just annihilate all of them, fire everybody, and then dispassionately move to the next deal. And that's the way it's been characterized. And I would say widely. It's not just characterized in, the New York Times and Washington Post and all of the people who have an investment in the federal government. It's broadcast news. I mean, this is specifically the way that this has been framed. Well, Bret Baier and Fox News did an awful lot of work in one interview last week that, from my perspective, changed the narrative entirely. This is not your 19-year-old antisocial personality that is sort of roaming through these are like some of the most successful people in our entire country who are very thoughtfully and meticulously going in and trying to figure out where there is waste in our government. And we have a couple of clips that sort of stood out, and then I know there are others that we wanted to talk about, but let's start with the first clip in clip 5.
You've got overstaffing. A good example of overstaffing would be the IRS has got 1,400 people who are dedicated to provisioning laptops and cell phones. So if you join the IRS, you get a laptop and a cell phone, you're provisioned. So if each of those IRS officers or employees provisioned 2 employees per day, you could provision the entire IRS in a little more than a month. So 12 times a year, you can
make any sense. Why would you have 1,400 people whose only job it is to give out a laptop and a phone?
Right. The whole IRS could be handled once a month.
Wow. Think about that.
It's just wild. And I know we're going to go through a couple of other clips, but what struck me most about that interview and the context that you laid out ahead of time, where the Democrats painted this picture of people who were 19 and didn't know what they were doing, and then you see the reality. These are captains of industry, very smart people who are offering common sense reactions to what anybody would offer if they were aware of how bad this government is.
And not political ideologues. In fact, these are people that I'm not even sure you could characterize as Republican.
Yeah, not at all. And what this moment reminded me of was how the left treated J.D. Vance at the very beginning of his announcement as VP. They said he is weird and he did unspeakable things to a couch. And then all of a sudden, he is toe-to-toe with their national standard bearer and just annihilates the guy. And people are like, wait a minute, he's actually incredibly intelligent and he's exactly what we want at the top of this country.
Because they have completely lost touch with the American people, their only method for convincing people is come up with some kind of made-up lie about an individual to smear them.
And then try to brand it.
And blast that out there again and again and again and again and again. The way that you saw, like, all those Senate Democrats release the same message talking to the camera, 20 of them at the same time. They put it online at the same time because in their minds, it's just like, come up with the smear and hammer and hammer and hammer and hammer it. You saw they've done it to Supreme Court nominees on their side. You see that they do it to J.D. Vance. They did it to all the Doge people. This is their playbook.
Yeah, but we kind of did it to ourselves, though, a little bit, too. Like, if I had a criticism of the Trump administration and Doge, it's that they should have been leading with this. Like, they should have did more public media right out the gate to define the terms of the debate. In the beginning, it was a lot of stuff in USAID and all of that. I'm glad that they're cutting. Right?
Yeah.
But then our opponents got to control the entire narrative, and it was like, oh, well, these are 19-year-old coders and big balls and all this. You know what I mean?
They couldn't defend trans studies in Tanzania, so they had to attack the process by which it found it.
Right, which is why I think, like, given everything we know now, and watching that Brett Baer interview, you should have led with these guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I didn't know they existed to the extent that, I mean, I knew some of them, but this is just like a tour de force. If you haven't seen it on Fox, it's on their website, and go to the special report tab and you'll find the full interview. Watch the full interview. It will change everything in how you view all of this. But what he was talking about was 1,400 people that are employed at the IRS to give out, they're literally, their only job is to hand over a laptop and a phone. And they could repopulate the entirety of the workforce twice a year, every day. You know what I mean? Like every day, if these guys, you could repopulate the entire workforce. I mean, at no point does that make any sense. But if you understand that there's absolutely zero responsibility and accountability within an administration, you could understand where they're looking around. They're like, I don't know, we hired a bunch of new people. We need a laptop guy. Yeah. And then every other month, they're like, well, let's find another laptop guy. Yeah. Let's find another. And what these guys did, I thought, was sort of dispassionately explain how all of a sudden a job offer goes out there, and these people, like, you know, they see a job offer for the United States government and doing some IT stuff. They take it and they get the job. It's not really their fault. The fact that the job was open in the first place is entirely the fault of an administration that has absolutely no concern about taxpayer dollars whatsoever. And they see that, like, that's just a very easy piece to understand. Let's get to a second clip, which I find even more fascinating. Clip 6.
Medicare and Medicaid, NIH, what are you finding?
Yeah. Well, I'd say there's a couple things we're really committed to in our work at HHS. Number one, making sure we continue to have the best biomedical research in the world. And number two, making sure, which President Trump has said over and over again, that we 100% protect Medicare and Medicaid. But there's a lot of opportunity. So if I take NIH as an example, today, if you're an NIH researcher and you get a $100 grant at your university, today you get to spend 60 of that and your university spends 40 of that. The policy that we're proposing to make is that you get to spend 85 of that and your university spends 15. So that's more money going directly to the scientists who are discovering new cures.
Yeah. Did you hear that?
That is such an insane statistic.
Did you hear that? So what we've read and what we have been told is that they're cutting NIH budgets.
Right. We were going to have another pandemic because of Doge and Elon Musk and
that
Donald
they
Trump.
Straight face you that there is no research that's going to be done into disease, the next pandemic, preventable health outcomes, because they're cutting all this. What these guys are saying is what we found out is that the universities are taking a massive cut. The universities, by the way, that are raising your kids' tuitions.
Right, that have billion-dollar endowments.
Yeah, and surviving exclusively on their nonprofit status to go rule over Palestinian protesters that are shutting your school down. Like, they're taking the lion's share of the cut on that, and the researchers in and of themselves that they applied and are doing the research are not getting the money.
I mean, you hear all these statistics over how the cost of college has exploded over the past 10 years, how the cost has doubled, tuition, fees has doubled, and then the number of administrators at universities has exploded at the exact same rate. They have all these employees who are just administrators, bureaucrat. These people are taking a 40% rip off of that cancer research money.
It's their
hustle. Immoral. It's immoral.
It's their hustle.
But that's the way you guys are looking at it. But I'm telling you, we will have another pandemic if every provost doesn't get a raise this year. It will happen.
I mean, no, but for real.
That's eye-opening.
It's the way that they view it, and that they never disclose any of this. And by the way, it sort of all hooks into the other part of their constituency where they tried to make all college student loans the property of American taxpayers and make everybody go, but they still weren't changing the tuition.
Right.
It's all back to that same constituency, the people that run these colleges and universities. Can you imagine with a straight face having to defend the fact that you're taking a 45% rip on every disease research.
Honestly, there should be congressional hearings on that.
Like, why? How could you ever defend that?
They have billion-dollar endowments. Drag these clowns in front of Congress and make them say, like Holmes just said, drag them and make them say, yeah, we deserve a 40% rip.
And this is the real reason why the left is
This is it.
Tesla and Doge.
You're right.
It's not because, they're trying to make government more efficient. It's that they're exposing the racket.
That's it.
That there's institutional rot in all these left-wing NGOs and nonprofits who do studies where, like, the Biden administration can appropriate billions, tens of billions of dollars to build out electric charging stations, and they built 8.
Yeah.
Right?
Which happened.
Or like California passes high-speed rail 15 years ago, and it's still not even done.
Yeah,
Right?
how $2 billion goes to an organization set up by Stacey Abrams 5 weeks before with $100 in the bank and no technical expertise in the grant that they're supposed to be administering.
And the reason why I think it's really important is there's a lot of discourse right now about this like abundance thing that Ezra Klein's out there selling. He wrote a book and he did Gavin Newsom's podcast and he went on Pod Save America talking about how, as liberals, we have to acknowledge that we've been really bad at implementing all of these policies. And it's like, you dumb shit. They fail on purpose. And they fail on purpose because 99% of the people in the Democratic Party want it to fail.
Bingo.
It's a trough for them to suck taxpayer money and put it in their wallet. They don't actually care about improving the lives of anyone. There are seriously, 10 earnest liberals at think tanks putting out white papers being like, we could change the world if we really try hard. And it's like their whole rest of their party's like, gimme, gimme, gimme.
Yeah, and Bernie ain't one of them, folks.
Yeah, right.
That's the funny thing.
Exactly. And that's what Doge is so good at doing is just investigating the institutional rot of the left.
Yeah. And if you can take a step back, it's not just about government. I mean, we spent an awful lot of time on this program talking about institutional capture and what they've done throughout the country, particularly in the late 2010s, through the George Floyd post-COVID era into the Biden administration. You have higher education, you've got entertainment, you've got corporate America for a large portion of that, and you've got the government. And all of these things sort of all working together in what seems like a bonkers leftward ideological pursuit that is totally divorced from the experience the American people have on a day-to-day basis. And you ask yourself why? Well, it turns out they're all in on it.
Yep.
They're all in on it. And the federal government for the United States of America is big enough, prosperous enough, to have this bleed over where you wonder how higher education ends up entirely institutionally captured by the left. Well, a huge part of their bottom line is from the left. They cut the checks. Somebody made the deal that 45% of the NIH research was fine to just have as a slush fund sloshing around. Doesn't need to go to students or the research.
The fucking mafia doesn't charge a rip that high.
They would be embarrassed. They'd be embarrassed.
I mean, that's the thing is this is so eye-opening because for so long it's like the American people have had this abstract idea of why are things getting worse? Why is it when you hear all these statistics like America spends more on healthcare than any other country and ends up with the worst outcomes in the Western world? Why is it America spends more on education than any country and ends up with the worst outcomes in the Western world? Why is it in every single instance we spend more than anyone and we end up getting the least? And this is what Doge has uncovered. The reason is all of it's been a ripoff. All of it's been a ripoff. And the left, their surge in power of these past 20 years is because you've been paying for it, dear listener.
Yeah,
your tax money that's getting ripped out of your pockets in 2 weeks has been paying for all these clowns.
And I don't think we have the clip, but it extends to Social Security. There was a guy in that panel who talked about how Social Security money is going over to illegals. We talked about this before the show, Smug.
It's insanity. So, and Elon explained this as well at the rally he held in Wisconsin for Supreme Court. Everyone in Wisconsin vote on Tuesday.
Yeah, we're going to get to that.
For sure. They have discovered multiple instances of payments being sent to illegal aliens through Social Security money. So when you were being told that there's not going to be Social Security for you when you reach retirement age, but it's there today for illegal immigrants who are being paid. And Elon was describing that their settings in the Social Security database was max. Give them max benefits, max payments, max everything. It's like this previous administration was doing everything they can to encourage people to illegally enter this country. They're just bribing what they were hoping for, another generation of voters to just have permanent control over this country.
Right,
it's horrific.
It's at the expense of regular people who rely on this stuff. They're hoping Social Security will be there for them. They're hoping Social Security disability insurance is there if they actually need it, but the left is milking it dry. So it touches absolutely everything in government. And I mean,
it also explains everything there is to know about the left.
Yeah.
Like, that's the problem. The reason that you've got this full information flow through lefty chambers that are brainwashing these poor people that are out committing acts of violence is because they don't want you to know any of this stuff. They want you to think that Elon is a Nazi and that he's going to take away your Social Security and all of that, because they don't have a good answer for what it is that Elon's found.
Mm-hmm.
And what he's found is that the people who are claiming to protect your Social Security and protect your way of life and ensure that you have cures to diseases and all that are doing the exact opposite.
The media would have you believe that those people are burning Teslas because they're worried that there's going to be an Ebola outbreak in Africa because of Elon Musk.
Right.
And we're here to tell you that's not true.
No, it's quite the opposite. I mean, if the resources that we dedicated to these problems were used for it, we'd be in a lot better spot than that. But it also extends to their whole ideological point of view on elections and everything else. Well, you might wonder why it is that Democrats are so hard-pressed to get power and keep power and all the, like, you get Kamala Harris out, who's just an absolute fucking numbskull, who says her first line of a debate is like, I'm a champion of small businesses. Like, there's no, she's a lot of things. That is the furthest thing from anything that she's never run a business. She's never even been.
It'd be like me starting every debate saying, I am a NBA champion point guard.
Yeah. No, it's not
bonkers.
funnier than that.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is true. But you might ask yourself, why? Yeah. Like, why would you be that disingenuous about your point of view? And the reason is because they don't want you to know.
Yep.
Like, they don't want you to know. And it's taken me a while to get to this spot. But I feel like we're now in a place where everything that Doge is uncovering is unmasking. The Democrats are less of a political movement. It's less of an ideological difference on how to solve the same problems we all agree are problems,
right,
as it is institutional capture, power amassing, and then central control over the way they think you ought to live your life.
And it can all be based on a lie. I did a thread over the weekend on X about this, but like Al Gore can say there'll never be snow again on Mount Kilimanjaro and create the entire green cottage industry out of thin air. Yep. And then it just exists and sucks out billions of dollars from our economy and from our government over the next 20 years. Like, think about that. Think about what that power is. Yeah. That you can just lie and then people get paid billions of dollars on your lie.
The plastic straws going in the turtle noses.
Yes, right.
That was also a lie. Turns out that was a kid's school project.
Yes.
That was done incorrectly. But Dems were like, listen,
we'll base
this is
our whole
another
lives on
opportunity for emotional blackmail.
Yeah. If it was
because they love weaponizing people's sympathy
emotion
against them. They want to use your emotions to make you do what they want. That was all a lie.
But if it wasn't for Al Gore saying the earth has a fever, if it wasn't for the plastic straws and the turtle noses, then Stacey Abrams would have never received $2 billion to her small NGO, which Kamala probably thinks is a small business, to somehow change out stoves.
Small business.
And I saw another statistic that was put out this past weekend that America had the fewest 90 degrees plus days last year than the 1920s, since the 1920s. So all these lies that become widely accepted that the left has pushed only for one purpose, it's a money-making operation.
Yes.
That's all it's like Holmes says, they actually believe in nothing. These people are nihilists who just want money.
They just want power and
money. The federal
money.
government's got lots of it, so they snatch it from there.
That is the core of the ideological left today. And so, at the end of this story, you look at what's happening to Teslas. Mm-hmm. You look at what's happening to Tesla dealerships and all of that. Just remember, all of this is a considered, like, an effort on behalf of the left to try to convince these people, some of which have real mental health problems, evidently.
I mean, that's their favorite. That's their foot soldiers.
Yeah. To go do violence in the name of employing 1,400 people to hand out laptops at the IRS, or trans studies in Tanzania, or the fact that university provosts can keep 40% of NIH money instead of it going for cancer research as it was intended by Congress. Like, by the way, constitutional crisis.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Right.
What do you think that, like, we had such a problem with, this was congressionally appropriated money. How many members of Congress do you think knew they were getting a 40% rip from a provost?
I mean, in my entire life, I've been told that the Republican Party cares about cutting, the waste out of government. And Doge is actually doing it.
Right.
Like, for the first time in my life, I really feel like this is a priority for a Republican administration, and they're doing it. They're doing it out in public. And that's the important thing.
Yes.
It's like, we've worked a long time in this business, and you know how slow DC operates when you actually have to go before Congress and be like, well, we have this blue ribbon commission, and these are our recommendations, and like now you can turn that into law. And that's a difficult thing to get done. So the most important thing, I think, is winning the argument first with the American people. And that's what that Brett Baer interview did, and that's why it's so important.
Yeah. Well, and we're giving you a little something to work on your neighbors for, because my sense is that an awful lot of you have heard from either colleagues that you work with or folks that your kids go to school with or whatever, some bonkers stuff.
Yeah.
Bonkers stuff. I want to know, for our question of the day, what is the most bonkers take on Elon and Doge that you have heard to date in your own communities?
Yeah.
Give us what you've got on that front. Throw in some stuff that you can.
And what's the most shocking thing that Doge has even found? I want to know that. What do people think is the most surprising? Because for me, finding out that universities are taking 40% of the money, I had no clue.
No, yeah, I mean, I had no clue, and I didn't know a lot of that stuff that came out on Thursday. It was like very rarely do you watch news and you're like, holy smokes, it changed my world.
Yeah.
I mean, that one did.
Something else.
Hats off to Brett Baer and the entire crew at Special Report for airing that thing, because that was a heck of an interview. Okay, last Thursday, we did a very in-depth overview of everything about Signalgate. And I think, by the way, we've been proven entirely right about I mean, the fact that literally 0 people are still talking about it, I think we were right about it. Our big question was, is Signalgate a real story? Because it dominated every newscast on the front page of every newspaper for all 5 days last week. Is it a real story? Is this DC Palace intrigue of people just talking to each other about it? Your takes, fantastic. Remember, you get a like and subscribe in order to get your takes on here. We read every single one of them. And to do that, we always start with a voice.
Okay, first one comes from Catherine DeMille. And Catherine writes, if President Trump was a normal politician, he would have fired or at least disciplined either NSA or SecDef or both. But our president is way smarter than that. That's right. He treated it with all the sincerity it deserved.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Well done.
Well written, Catherine.
Recall a successful mission. Punishing people for a successful mission because the mainstream media doesn't see it that way.
Yeah.
That's it right there.
Not great management.
Well, so we talked about this at drinks last week, and what I said then was like, another superpower Donald Trump has is he makes everyone so crazy that when he just says a normal thing, like he gets to be the most normal person in the room.
Yeah, they're all insane.
He's like, yeah, that was a problem. We'll fix it. We'll move on.
Yeah.
And it's like,
they're like, what are you doing? Full seizures.
Like, don't you understand? We're going crazy.
It's like epileptic episodes all over the Roosevelt room. And he's like, you guys okay? Everybody okay?
Seems like we goofed a little. We'll fix it.
Yeah, we'll fix it. All right, comment 2, Dunks or Runks.
This is from Martini Man. Martini Man writes, this is obviously a government media complex ginned up, quote, scandal to harm the administration, as evidenced by the Wall Street Journal and Washington Post piling on with their likely fictional unnamed sources. No one cares that they use Signal for a real-time chat about the bombing of the Houthis. We care about terrorists being decimated so shipping can return to normal. That was the real story.
Yep. That's exactly our take. Great comment there. All right, Smuggles, what do we got for the third?
This one comes from The Homestead Journey, and they write, the dog segment on last episode was far more newsworthy than the Signal nonsense. I'm so disappointed that MSNBC didn't run a hot take about White House correspondent John Ashbrook giggling like a schoolgirl at Smug's lack of care and concern for Fido's hashtag shame.
Dude, I love this. I love this comment because I think this is the first time I've seen like a blowback from the audience about a segment bleed into the next week's comment.
Yeah, no, it's still going. They don't care for it. They don't care. Well, and some love it.
No, yeah, right.
You know, I mean, I would say the vast majority have loved it. If for those of you, it was 2 episodes ago.
Yeah.
Where there was a take about a woman taking care of her dog in the restroom because they wouldn't allow her on a plane.
Taking care of.
Yeah.
That's one way to put it.
That's a way to describe it.
Oh,
It's
I'm
not
the
even
bad guy. I'm the bad guy.
Smug's Duncan.
Smug.
You sound like Ralph Northam describing an abortion.
Yeah. Did you catch that?
Smug.
It's like the dog's going to be taken to the restroom. It'll have some care.
A decision will be made.
A decision will be made.
Well, you laid out the conservative case for murdering a dog in a restroom.
He
so
did.
I'll just leave it at that.
He did. It was wild.
People. They love it. They love it. All right, we're gonna give you an election update. So today, this very day, if you live in the great state of Florida or in Wisconsin, you got important stuff to do. There are 2 congressional races to fill 2 vacancies in Florida. Both of which have gotten the attention, obviously, because we're dealing with a 1 or 2 seat majority in the House of Representatives, taxes, border, everything to
It's all on the
do
line.
with the Trump administration's agenda is entirely on the ballot for you today. And the first one, we're talking about the Supreme Court race, which we did a number, and we had some folks in to talk about it. Really, really important stuff. I think, like, Elon's been involved. You've seen Don Jr. involved. Typically, a Supreme Court race in a state doesn't get this kind of attention. This one is. What do you fellas think about it?
Well, I think it's tight as a tick. And I think that if you don't get out and if you're in Wisconsin, you do not get out and vote today, you need to just check yourself tomorrow, because if we lose, the left will continue to control the Supreme Court in Wisconsin. And what the left has in mind for your state and what they have in mind for the congressional districts that they will draw in that state is the absolute worst of the worst. You heard every reason of what the left is doing against our country right now. They're going to continue to do it in much, much worse fashion if they can hang on to that majority in Wisconsin.
Especially at a time in which President Trump is facing so much opposition in the judiciary on the federal level. It's like, Republicans, you got to pay attention to these local races, the Supreme Court fights, and things like that, because it matters a ton. I mean, there's going to be a lot of stuff in voter ID, not just drawing of the lines in Wisconsin. That's going to be very important for future elections. It's important that Republicans show up. The other thing I would say is, we had this happened in the first Trump administration as well. It's like Donald Trump's coalition's its own thing.
Yeah.
Right? It's a unique coalition of voters, a lot of them low propensity, presidential election year only voters. And if you believe in the Trump administration and Donald Trump's vision for this country, you got to show up in the other elections.
You have to.
It's not his vision of what he wants to accomplish will not be made real unless you show up when it's less convenient.
Well,
when it's not the presidential election.
It rattles the nerves of all of the people whose vote that agenda depends upon.
Right.
When you start losing elections in a significant way, knowing you're all on the same home team. Right. If you expect somebody to take a tough vote in June, July, or August on whether it's taxes or whether it's border or whatever it is, pretty important that they have confidence in the coalition going forward. So these are the kind of things that make a big difference. The final thing I'll say is we just talked about power. Like the person who's running, Susan Crawford, the Democrat here, she basically worked to try to get rid of voter ID.
Yes.
In Wisconsin. And now they're pretending like, oh, no, we're all on the same page on that. But they're going to go get rid of voter ID. What they want to do is dismantle any sort of electoral protections in safety in elections. They want to redraw districts to add 2 more Democrats in Wisconsin, thereby nullifying a Republican majority. They're not hiding this. This is what they intend to do.
That's very critical, folks, because right now we know how razor thin the House majority is. We know what a big deal it was that Trump won Wisconsin. This is their effort, the left's, right now, to make sure none of that happens again.
Yep.
They want total control.
The other 2 big ones in Florida that we mentioned, the race to replace Matt Gaetz. He was the 1st district of Florida. Feels pretty good. Jimmy Patronis, Florida's chief financial officer, endorsed by Trump, faces Gay Valamont. There's a name for you. A gun violence prevention activist who ran for the seat in 2024, one of those sort of perennial candidates. That one feels pretty good. It's in the Panhandle, remember. We've got a nice little partisan index, but look, stranger things have happened. You got to go out and vote.
That's the thing.
You got to go out and vote and make sure that one gets over the finish line. Because again, without the vote, we don't get the Trump agenda. The second one, which has been under huge scrutiny, is the race to replace Mike Waltz. Remember, he left to be the national security guy in the White House, and this race is more. I mean, look, there's a partisan advantage on the Republican side, no question about it. We should win the race. But when you have people firebombing Teslas,
yes.
You know what the left is willing to do to try to disrupt the rest of the Trump agenda, and they're doing it here.
And I'd heard that the Democrat has raised $9 million.
Yeah.
Huge spending advantage.
Yeah, if you live in Orlando, you've seen those ads on TV every single day. And so if you're a Republican living in the Orlando area, you have to get out and vote.
Yeah, the district spans from St. Augustine down to Daytona Beach, Marion, St. John's, Volusia counties. I mean, if you're in anywhere, you have to go vote. This one is a very, very big one.
Yeah, honestly, if you know any friends or family that live in Florida, give them a call today. Ask them if they voted, and if they have not, tell them to go vote. If they say they don't live in that district, then that's one thing, but just cover your base.
Yeah.
Make sure, if they're in Florida, there's 2 House races there. Make sure that they vote.
Incredibly important stuff. So I'm glad we covered that. We'll, on Thursday, do a recap of where we landed on all of those things. God willing, we end up on the right side. But I know all of you will do everything in your power to make sure, if you live in those districts, to get things done. Hack Madness.
There it is.
There's the music.
Well, it's the greatest show on earth, and Hack Madness is a race, as you recall, an online race to determine who's the biggest journalist hack in all of politics. It's a 66 person field, but there are 64 different games in this bracket to determine who's the biggest one, and we have whittled down to an Elite 8, Smug.
I like to call it the elitist 8. You've got the worst of the worst hacks. And thank you, all of you who have been voting. I mean, it's been incredible seeing the votes being cast, the debates being had. The results of these matches have been incredible. There's only 8 left. So it's coming down to it. Remember, folks?
Some upsets.
Yeah, there's been upsets. But if you want to vote, you visit my profile at Comfortably Smug on X. I have it pinned right at the top to vote. And I mean, we're going to talk about this bracket because it's been mind-blowing.
It's incredible. The powerhouses, a number of them that we've discussed, still very much alive here, and a lot of interesting stories along the way. Michael, I know you have some statistics on what we've been doing here.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting, I think, here in the bracket, number one, is Mika Brzezinski going on a tear through Jonathan Capehart and then Phil Bump. She was a 7 seed, as you'll recall.
Yeah. Working her way. She's the lowest seed that's in the Elite 8.
Look, man, she's tough, but she has run into a wall here in the Elite 8 because Margaret Brennan has been on a heater. She is headed for the championship, and she will defeat Mika Brzezinski.
What's the March Madness thing? The metric, the guy.
The Ken Pom.
The Ken Pom.
Yeah.
I feel like if there was a Ken Pom evaluation of the hottest teams in this tournament, Margaret Brennan would be.
Oh, number 1 overall seed.
I mean, not only that, but she's been destroying the competition. She went through David Klepper, David French, Caitlin Collins, all like they were just standing still.
Yeah, I think the closest she's come is like 80%. Like, it's just been just total domination. On the other hand, what caught me off guard is her CBS coworker and debate partner for that J.D. Vance debate, Norah O'Donnell's been taken out, folks.
Yeah, it went down to Tapper.
Yeah, a number 1 seed. She was a number 1 seed, went down to number 5, Jake Tapper, who also steamrolled number 4, John Harwood. Like,
that one
Tapper is on a tear.
That one was a surprise to me. I thought Harwood would skate to the finals, but he listen, Jake got hot at the right time. Some residual anger, I think, over the election.
Yeah, and he's facing Brian Stelter in this Elite 8 competition.
I think the best story of the tournament.
That's pretty great.
The potato, as you recall, wasn't a part of last year's field.
Yeah, he had to take a year off when CNN fired him, but he was
his way back. Former champion.
Yeah, former champion. I mean, the potato was a dominant force in this game for years. For years. It was almost always a question of, is it going to be the potato, Stelter, or is it going to be Jen Rubin? Perennial champs battling it out. Stelter came in as the number 3 seed. He's been doing well. He beat Anderson Cooper. Facing Jake Tapper, I mean, I the way that Jake Tapper's been just on a surge.
An all CNN lower bracket.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The other matchup I'm really watching closely is this Way Too Online with Anna Navarro against Joy Reid.
Interesting. Interesting. Anna Navarro, somebody who doesn't get kind of FaceTime that they have in previous years, was a relatively modest 5 seed. She's been much higher in previous years. Came in, but has been steamrolling. I mean, took care of Don Lemon,
That's
which is
to me a surprise.
She beat Chris Hayes and Don Lemon back to back.
Yeah.
And that's after Don Lemon knocked off the number 1 seed, Eugene Daniels, in that part of the bracket.
Yeah. I mean, big stuff.
Big stuff.
Yeah, but you can't take anything away from Joy Reid, who beat Joe Scarborough to get to this round.
And beat Sonny Austin.
Sonny Austin. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty incredible.
It could be just like Joy Reid's last ride,
Yeah.
She lost her job.
Yeah, we got a top seed matchup just to round out the bracket. Nicole Wallace, I had her in the finals. She's been putting up numbies all the way through. She's taking on a very difficult co-host at MSNBC and Rachel Maddow. That's going to be a barn burner.
It is, but I like your prediction on Wallace to the finals. I've got a Wallace Brennan matchup for the championship, and I just think those two have really been standout players.
Well, Ashbrook, getting to the prediction rankings as they are currently, overall of all of the over 1,100 brackets that were submitted, our current leader is Farbo with 160 points.
That's a big number.
Coming in close second here, Rich Carter at 158 points. That's the overall bracket. Our internal numbers are closer here. And number 1 is yours truly.
Is that right?
Surprise.
133.
Okay.
John Ashbrook is second at 123 points. Josh Holmes at 101 points.
Oh, I've moved up to 3.
Moved up. Smug is in the basement at 97 points.
Wow.
That's surprising.
That is surprising. I feel maybe you went with your heart on a couple of those third rounders.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I would have focused more on this bracket than the March Madness one that I'm, at the top of.
Yeah, that's true.
Dominating.
You focus too much on the bracket that doesn't matter.
Exactly. This is the one that matters.
So are we putting out the next round today?
Yeah, the voting, as you watch this show, listeners and viewers on YouTube, voting should be live when you're seeing this. 8 goes to 4, and then we're going to have a final 4, folks.
Yes.
And there's been hundreds of thousands of people who have voted.
Hundreds of thousands of votes. It's been huge. Remember, go to my profile on X at Comfortably Smug. Vote. It's happening now.
It's just the funniest thing.
It's the best.
Absolutely love it. Thank you for your participation. You guys ready for a little variety?
Always.
This one's going to...
Yeah.
Well, we should probably preemptively apologize to Karen Duncan.
Yeah.
Your mom.
Sorry, Mom.
If you want to turn down the volume, or if you've got children in the car, maybe this is a good time to
hit pause
and come back to. You're not going to want to miss it, but you probably want to watch Mixed Company. There's a story in the New York Post, which I think accurately covers many of these airline problems that we've been having. This headline: Perv passenger next to female CEO masturbated for hour on first class flight.
An hour.
An attendant did nothing, suit alleges.
Good God.
There's so much to get to. Let me read a little bit, then I want some commentary on it. There was a snake on the plane.
Only the New York Post. Only the New York Post.
A first-class perv on American airline plane masturbated for an hour next to a stunned fashion entrepreneur on a flight from New York City to Milan. But a flight attendant dismissed his revolting behavior, saying, quote, "Men just do stuff like that."
Oh, my goodness.
Neil Elshriff, the CEO of 3 different companies, including a luxury vegan leather brand, Mela, said she was terrified to go to sleep during the May 27 trip out of JFK airport, fearing her seatmate would assault her. The man, identified in court papers only as John Doe, chugged multiple glasses of champagne before she noticed him grabbing his groin and rubbing his genitals over his pants, she said in a legal filing. She froze in her seat and began to panic. She felt extremely uncomfortable and helpless, the court docs read. John Doe continued to masturbate for approximately 60 minutes, and during that time, neither flight attendant nor the American Airlines crew member walked through the premium economy cabin. So she was left to fend for herself. When he finally stopped, she left her seat and found a flight attendant, but got no help. She continued. This is all according to her lawsuit. Flight attendant told her there was nothing really that she could do about it other than move the businesswoman to coach, which is, frankly, on one of those airline. If you're going overseas to Milan, I'll take the masturbator.
But here's the thing.
for the free champagne.
Can't the stewardess just say, "Hey, buddy, can you stop"? Like, what's the I can't do anything about it? That makes no sense. Why can't they just and if it's a stewardess and she doesn't feel comfortable approaching the guy, find the guy who's with, maybe the co-pilot, come back and say, "Hey, fella, not here."
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe
not sitting here on the plane.
Maybe not.
Yeah, the stewardess is acting like it's a chihuahua humping your leg. It's like, oh, just let him, let him go.
Let him do it. Hey, men just do stuff like that.
Baby, come on.
Lady, I don't know about you, but men just do stuff like that.
It's not exactly a boys will be boys situation.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's a public airline, for crying out loud.
So I have a lot of thoughts about this.
Oh, boy.
Yes.
And I think I kind of understand why a lot of this is happening. First off, first clue here. It's a flight from New York City to Milan. So extremely high likelihood this is an Italian guy. Okay? That's if you start there, you start putting the pieces together.
Yeah. Hot-blooded.
There you go.
Finally, the soundboard.
Now, I think there's also some
Italian guy.
Some important things to clarify. So the New York Post in this headline says this happened in first class.
Yeah.
Then you read a little bit and it says premium economy.
I noticed that too.
And then it says this guy was slamming down some champagne. So you've got, folks, premium economy is economy. It's just coach where you're delusional. It's delusional coach.
It's coach with an embroidered headrest.
Yeah,
that's the difference between premium economy and economy.
It's the same, folks. You've got an Italian in economy.
Well, I was wondering
who's slamming down champagne.
But I was wondering about that. I mean, that's a good heads up because you're talking about a seatmate here, and typically a first class international flight, you've got those pods.
And all the pieces are there, folks. It's an Italian guy in economy slamming down champagnes. It's maybe Italians attendants who are like, oh, that's just what guys do in Italy. Maybe in Italy, maybe that flies in Italy. Bunga bunga parties or whatever they do. We all have heard about these Italian things. It's all well known.
No,
it's very
you're right.
documented.
You're right.
It's
Smug,
a
I
very
stand
well
with
known
you.
thing. And last.
Oh my God!
It's American Airlines, folks.
I can probably...
American Airlines. This is what you get.
You're now on American. I thought we were in Southwest and all of that.
Well, no.
You're
That's
looping
the thing
in American.
There's essentially no difference anymore. They're all low cost.
No, I like my people in America.
No, American is trash. Horrible people. They treat you very badly. They don't care about their passengers anymore.
That's outrageous.
It's the truth. It's the truth. And I'm not afraid to tell it.
I'm not afraid to tell it.
And if you're flying on
I've had a luxurious
If you're
experience
flying
on
a U.S.
American.
carrier internationally, you're going to be treated like you're flying domestic, which is to say terribly.
He said you bought your ticket. You knew the risks. I say let the plane crash.
The Italian man should be jailed, though.
I say let the masturbator.
The Italian man, jail him. 100% jail him.
Well, he's got some legal trouble on her hand. I mean, she must have been really, if you're going to take this kind of thing public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope she sues the hell out of him and he gets locked up.
This is if
insanity.
you're gonna deboard the flight and be like, I'm taking legal action, that must have been a stressful experience. I mean, tough stuff on the airline. All right, well, that's our variety for today. I'm glad you all got a chance to hear us talk about Italian airline trips. Jesus, we're gonna get hate mail for that. Spaghetti, you all right? You gonna make it through that? I feel like I could hear La Savita coming up the stairs as I got halfway through that. Anyway, remember our question of the day. What have you heard from your friends and neighbors about Elon or about Doge that just blows your mind now that you've gotten a handle on the truth of what it is that they're doing? And what's the most shocking thing you found out that they have uncovered? Both of them contribute. You got to like and subscribe to do it. Please do. Thanks for all of you who do. It's how everybody sees and listens to our program. Thanks for all of that. And with that, fellas, I think we did it.
I think so. Absolute banger of an episode. Gentlemen, thank you so much to the means. Remember, if you have not yet, hit that subscribe and like button on YouTube. It's more fun in video. And vote in Hack Madness. Go to my profile on X @ComfortablySmug. Make your voice heard. So until next time, minions, keep the faith, hold line and own the libs. We'll see you Thursday. Stay ruthless.